August 8, 2008, the world heads to China, and one of Oklahoma's Olympic legends also heads to China. I'm Jenni Carlson here with Bart Conner, former Olympic gymnast. Bart will be going to Beijing, blogging for newsok.com, and today, thanks for joining us, Bart, to talk a little bit about gymnastics and the Olympic Games getting started.
I'm so excited, yeah, and happy to see Jonathan Horton on the front page today at the Oklahoma. So it's always good. You know it's an Olympic year when the gymnasts all of a sudden surface to the front page.
Becomes big news, right? Well, let's talk a little bit about the USA and their chances. Obviously, the men are a hot story right now with Paul Hamm deciding he's too injured to participate. But talk a little bit about the men's chances and the women's chances heading to Beijing.
Well, I think, we got the news about Paul Hamm having to withdraw, and that was a big blow. That's a devastating blow for the U.S. men. He is irreplaceable. He's a leader like Peyton Manning is for the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, that's just how good he is. So it'll be interesting to see how the team responds to that. Not only does Paul contribute a lot in terms of scores to the team, but his comeback was so inspiring that there was something of a rally around it, and it was an inspiration for the rest of the team as well. But I'm not at all disappointed that Jonathan Horton from OU now steps up into the #1 spot, because John is all about the team. And as we've seen for many years with what he's contributed at OU, he's a leader, he's a thrilling gymnast to watch. And I love his enthusiasm, and he's an easy guy to cheer for. So it'll be very interesting to see how it shakes out. From the gymnastics experts' perspective, most of the world expects that China and Japan are the top 2 teams in the world, and then the rest of the world is shooting for the bronze medal in the team competition. The U.S. is certainly in that mix. But the rules are different from when I competed. When I competed, you had to do, there were 5 athletes up on each event, and you count the best 4 scores. Now it's 3 athletes go up and 3 scores count. So literally, even if you are the best on paper, if there is an injury or a severe mistake, somebody makes a big mistake, even the best teams could be beaten. So it really is anybody's game, and so it's going to be thrilling to see how it develops.
What about the women? Obviously the men are the focus here, but the women nationally obviously get a lot of attention in the Olympic Games. Talk a little bit about them and the team that they're getting ready to take.
Isn't it funny, because usually all the drama is on the women's side of gymnastics, but right now it's all focused on the men. But the U.S. women are the world champions. They're brilliant. They're going to be fun to watch. In fact, 4 women on the team are also individual world champions in addition to their team successes. But China is great, and they're at home. They only have 1 or 2 members from their last year's world championship team on the competitive roster for the Olympics, so they have at least 4 untested athletes, but their women are just flat out remarkable. In the past, the one knock with the Chinese women is that they have been inconsistent. Most gymnastics experts see them as maybe the ultimate gymnasts, but inevitably there have been some mistakes, and that's where the U.S. has beaten them, because the U.S. has been more consistent. So I have a feeling that's going to be really thrilling. I think that's going to come down to the final athlete and the final event, and I believe it'll come down to U.S. and China battling for that gold medal in the team competition.
Obviously China is largely the talk because the games are there, but in gymnastics, with their spot in the world rankings, they're really going to be teams that are going to be watched. You've competed on home soil in a situation like this. What are they facing, and how may that play into things that they are at home in these Olympics?
Well, you always heard the story of the home court advantage, and at the Olympics it's pretty significant, because when your country is designated as the host site for the Olympics about 7 years before the Games, everything changes. All of a sudden there's more money funneled into your sports programs, better coaching, better facilities. So it's not just that you're psyched up because you have a lot of people cheering for you. It's 7 years of preparation and fine-tuning to get to that moment. So you get the benefit of that. The downside, of course, is there is an enormous amount of pressure, and the expectations are very high. We were lucky in 1984. We were competing at home, but we were the underdogs. The Chinese men were the best in the world. So I liked that position. Competing at home and being the favorite is very scary, and that's inevitably a treacherous situation for any team, because they're expected to win. So if they win, it's only a matter of relief. It's not necessarily a sense of elation that you succeeded. So I think that they'll have to deal with that enormous amount of pressure just from the high level of expectations. From their past successes, people are expecting them to win so many medals, and not everybody deals with that well.
Do you pick as your favorites the defending world champions, the Chinese men and the U.S. women as the favorites going in?
That's what I do. You know, we publish International Gymnast Magazine. We all made our picks the other day. And, yeah, I'm going with the reigning world champions. But, you know, anything can happen at the Olympics, as we have seen. So, but that's one of the great things about the games is there's so much drama that will play out right in front of us. It's going to be fun to be there to see it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about China as a host. They have been gearing up for these games, like you say, now for practically 8 years and probably even longer if you really think about their history. Talk a little bit about them as a host. There's concerns, but there's also excitement about this being the site. What's your feeling on Beijing hosting these games?
Well, you know, any country that steps into the international arena and says we want to host the Olympics, they invite international scrutiny. And I think that's a good thing. Because it's sort of like inviting somebody into your house. You know, they're going to look around and, oh, I'm not sure I like that, or what. You know, it's what it is. And so China, having been a closed society for so many years, I think some of the international scrutiny they're not happy to have. But I think that's one of the great things about the Olympics. Everybody needs to be heard. Every issue needs to be out on the table, and openness is what it's all about. So that's a great thing about the Olympics. We're all coming together to play sports and hopefully create a sense of humanity and working together that makes the the Olympics special. So it'll be interesting. You know, I went to China in 1976. In fact, we were going to go at September of 1976. We all flew to Los Angeles. The whole U.S. gymnastics team was invited to do a tour of Beijing, Shanghai, and Canton, which is now called Guangzhou. And back in 1976, you didn't get to go to China unless you had a briefing from the State Department. So we had a briefing from the State Department. And then the next morning, we got up ready to go. We're sitting there reading the newspaper in the hotel, and Chairman Mao had died the night before. The country was closed. So I went back home, and I didn't get to go until November, later on that year. But we had a fascinating experience, and so China has changed a lot. You know, I was the only blonde guy in China in 1976. I'll never forget, I was at a store one time, and I was looking at some, little jade items I was going to bring home as gifts, and I just felt this weird sensation, and I turned around, and there had to be 50 people staring at me, and they were looking over my hair and looking me over, because they'd never seen a kid with blonde hair before. So, and that's when they all wore the Chairman Mao hats and the little Chairman Mao jackets, and it was a very, very closed society. So it's exciting. I've been to China many times, but to have been there 32 years ago and to see the transformation now, I mean, there's Ritz-Carltons and people are driving Bentleys. It's changed a lot.
Definitely. Well, you'll be bringing some of the sights and sounds to our readers on newsok.com. So continue to check newsok.com. Bart will be checking in from Beijing and, of course, be reading the pages of the Oklahoman for more on the Olympic Games. Thanks for joining us.